We're a week and a half away from UFC 311, the first pay-per-view of the year. Islam Makhachev, Arman Tsarukyan 2. And it's time for me to give my predictions and breakdown for every single fight on this card. And we're going to be starting with the prelims. Unbelievably stacked card. The return of Jiri Prochazka, Jamahal Hill finally going to happen. And stacked prelims as well. Even the early prelims have some ridiculously good fights on it. So without further ado, let's get into it. But before, not without further ado, I just wanted to mention one thing. This is going to be sponsored by the Real Food Cookbook and the Ultimate Lifting Program. For those of you who are interested in packing on some mass, putting on some strength in the winter, maybe you're struggling with your diet, you don't know what to eat, you don't want to eat that broccoli and chicken, you want to have something a little bit more hearty, a little bit more tasty, just without all the bullshit, whole and unprocessed ingredients. Check out the Real Food Cookbook. We've got some really tasty meals in there, and also Ultimate Lifting Programs. Code MMA for 30% off. Speaking of a guy that could hop on that Real Food Cookbook, Tagir Ulanbekov, the 6-foot-tall flyweight. I actually don't think, how tall is he? He's 5'7". What? How? This guy is taller than Islam Makhachev. He's listed at 5'7" here. That doesn't make any sense. Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. Now, this is a really interesting fight. This is a weird one. It's kind of like a Umar Nurmagomedov type of matchmaking where these guys, they're beating the Brian Kelleher's, they're beating the Cody Durdens, and they just keep giving these guys the same level of comp. Where's the Joshua Van fight? Because that's the fight that I wanted to see. That's the fight that was made in the past. Now we're getting Clayton Carpenter, but Clayton Carpenter is actually a pretty decent grappler. He's got a wrestling background. But of course, you got to go with Tagir Ulanbekov in this one. Coming off of 2 finishes, Clayton Carpenter has been going to decisions. Tagir Ulanbekov just submitted Cody Durden, and I think this is a very similar matchup to the Cody Durden fight, where Cody Durden, a guy that has a wrestling background, so does Clayton Carpenter. The difference here is that Tagir Ulanbekov is going to have the reach advantage. He's going to have the striking advantage. He's going to have the speed advantage, the experience advantage, and that is ultimately what is going to allow him to win this fight. He is, frame maxing in the flyweight division. So, don't be surprised if he can snatch up like a long rangy man submission, right? Maybe a head kick into a guillotine, something like that, like a Umar Nurmagomedov style, striking then into the submission. So I'm going to pick Tagir Ulanbekov to win this by submission in the second round or the first round. And then after this, it's time to give this guy a bump up in competition, okay? Sometimes the Dagestanis, they take forever to get the bump up, and then other times they give him Curtis Blades in their UFC debut. You never know what you're going to get, but this is a slow roll, this one. It seems like the 125ers, right, the non-Khabib cousins, the Umar Nurmagomedov, he gets the Corey Sandhagen fight into a title shot, but Umar Nurmagomedov, this guy's just lost he's lost out there, right? I'm going to go with Tagir Ulanbekov to win this fight. I think he's going to get it done. Clayton Carpenter is going to put up a good battle. He's going to try to stand his ground, but I just think that Tagir Ulanbekov is just a little bit better, right? Just a little bit better everywhere, right? So let's get on to the next one. Ricky Turcios versus Bernardo Sopaj. So this is Bernardo Sopaj's second UFC fight. Maybe it's Sopaj from Albania. He's the guy that got flying kneed by Vinicius Oliveira. Both of them were making their UFC debut. And actually, Bernardo was winning that fight against Oliveira before he got flying kneed. Oliveira since then has looked really impressive. And for that reason, I'm going to pick Bernardo Sopaj to beat Ricky Turcios. Listen, Ricky Turcios is not a big power puncher. He was getting a little bit of hype in the build-up to the Raul Rosas Jr. fight. Remember, Rosas was fighting this guy, and people were saying, man, this is a really good matchup. Ricky Turcios is a hardcore fans guy, right? He's the guy that's going to... oh, man, this is a nightmare for Raul Rosas. Like, I don't know where they came up with this. I guess it's because he has a goofy style. So the people that were watching the Valentina seasons of Tough were really hyped about this guy. These are the hardcore fans. So, but listen, Ricky Turcios, he's got nothing else but a funky style. He's not dangerous. He's not a particularly dominant grappler. Bernardo Sopaj seems to be a guy that can pack a little bit more of a punch. He's a guy that can go to a close decision with Vinicius Oliveira before he gets KO'd, but you get my point. He was winning that fight. I got to pick Sopaj. I got to pick him to win this fight. Turcios, you know what? He just doesn't have the finishing potential, in my opinion. And I think, like, Bernardo coming off of a brutal KO loss, if he was going in there with someone that actually can crack, maybe I would consider Ricky Turcios, because maybe Bernardo Sopaj would be a little bit tentative, but I don't think we're going to get that. I think he'll have no respect for Ricky Turcios. And unless Turcios just like smudges him up against the fence or tries to take his back for 3 rounds, he's not going to win this fight. Sopaj gets it done by decision. Rinya Nakamura versus Muin Gafurov. The Mole is back. We're big fans of Muin Gafurov on this channel. He's actually sponsored by the Real Food Cookbook. So, I actually want to pick him, right? I'm reluctantly going to have to go to Rinya Nakamura. And this is why I say reluctantly. Now, Rinya Nakamura, coming into the UFC, was this big wrestler with an overhand, right hand type of KO power every single time, right? You see Rinya Nakamura, you're going to get a blast double leg, Mark Coleman style, right? Kevin Randleman style blast double leg, and a big overhand KO. Since then, okay, he's had 2 fights. One against that, like, tough guy. Remember, I don't mean like a tough, these are all tough guys, but Carlos Vera, he was the 38-year-old late bloomer Conor McGregor team tough guy, right? The jiu-jitsu guy that was on Team Conor. And Joe Rogan was having aneurysms, and Rinya Nakamura smudged this guy into the canvas for 3 rounds. Such an unbelievably boring performance. And then before that, I believe he fought Fernie Garcia, who was on a bad losing skid. He may have been cut from the UFC after that. He was on a 3-fight losing skid. And Rinya Nakamura just smudged him up against the canvas. And this is the thing. Rinya Nakamura came into the UFC with a lot of hype, but he's not really been living up when it comes to style points. We needed to see a little bit of ground and pound, a little bit of a finishing ability against these guys, right? You've got this Carlos Vera guy who's flailing his legs around, and Joe Rogan's having aneurysms, and you just know that guy's not dangerous. We could have seen a little bit more urgency from Rinya Nakamura to actually, put some damage out there, but he didn't do it. Now, obviously, Gafurov's going to have a little bit of that natural grappling ability just based on the OV at the end of his name, right? Based on the way this guy looks. He's got a gas tank. He was able to show that when he became a legend in his first ever UFC fight. And he's very tricky. He has the ability to sort of lull people into a sense of not really knowing who he is, and then he shows them he's the Mole. But Rinya Nakamura, man, I think Rinya Nakamura is going to go out there, and I think he's going to get the takedown because he has a really strong wrestling base, and he's very good at not playing into the jiu-jitsu game. He's got like that Volkanovski style of hover. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? If you watch Dan Hardy breakdowns, Volk does a really good job of taking people down, but not playing the guard game, right? That's why he was able to beat up Islam Makhachev on the ground in that 5th round, because Makhachev was trying to throw up whatever. He's trying to get up to his feet, and Volkanovski just negates it, having that ability to hover. Rinya Nakamura's got that, right? He doesn't have the ground and pound of a Volk. Hey, he doesn't have the ground and pound of a Volk. Not many do, but, he's not even got a fraction of it, but I want to see some ground and pound if this guy actually goes out there and gets a takedown, which he will. I want the Mole to win. I want Muin Gafurov to go out there and pull this one off by a decision. I think if this is a stand-up battle, you've always got a chance of Rinya Nakamura landing a big overhand, right? He's got a lot of power. But it seems that he's probably just going to get a takedown and hover his way to a decision, 3 rounds. If he can't finish Fernie Garcia and if he can't do any damage to Carlos Vera, I don't think he's going to do a whole lot to Muin Gafurov unless he knocks him out with an overhand on the feet. So, I think we're going to get a bit of a lackluster performance. Muin Gafurov got submitted by Said Nurmagomedov in his last outing, by the way. He was finished within the first minute. But Rinya Nakamura not showing an ability to put people away yet in the UFC. I'll go with Rinya Nakamura by a 30-27. Or 29-28 decision as we get on to Rosa versus Ailin Perez. I think this is going to be an Ailin Perez win. Listen, she's 11-2. Karol Rosa's 18-6. Ailin Perez has been winning all of her fights. She's been, getting the finishes, the highlights. Karol Rosa just not been doing anything. So I'm going to go with Ailin Perez to get this one done by a decision, okay? As we get on to a really amazing fight, Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. This is actually crazy. Diego Ferreira, at the age of 39, had the best performance of his entire career. He's now on a 2-fight win streak, not only knocking out Michael Johnson, who's been doing really well recently, but coming off of a dominant, not win, finish and domination over Mateusz Roumbetsky, who just beat Orolbai. All right, so this is the guy to beat Mateusz Roumbetsky. He's 39 years old, Diego Ferreira. Early on in his career, he had mediocre striking with amazing grappling. Now he's got some of the most dangerous, lethal, high-output striking. He's like a mini Aleski dos Santos, where he's like a machine on the feet all of a sudden. It's crazy. This guy's 39 years old and looking like a world beater. Obviously still has amazing grappling. He was able to TKO Roumbetsky. I think there was just a lot of damage, accumulation of damage. He had Roumbetsky's eye swollen and all that. He was looking like he was cracking pretty hard in that fight too. Great kicks. Grant Dawson, on the other hand, the missing link. Grant Dawson's been in the mix recently. We've been seeing him training with Poirier, and we've been seeing him training with, other guys at ATT, Moicano, Arman Tsarukyan. So he's not necessarily dropped off the face of the earth, but I believe that Grant Dawson, his only way to win this fight is by getting a takedown, which he has really good entries, very fast with his takedown entries. And he did show us really good ground and pound in his last outing. The criticism of Grant Dawson has always been he's a great grappler, but he can't hurt people on the ground. And if he doesn't get a submission, it's going to be boring. But he beat the shit out of his last opponent, TKO'd him. But it was a huge step down in competition. This is a totally different beast. Now, the thing is, though, we often see guys like OSP, for example, had an amazing performance. I forget who it was against. I think it may have been Ryan Spann. I don't remember who it was, but OSP had a really good performance. And I was saying, wow, one of his best performances where he actually has energy. He's 40 years old. I'm probably going to pick him in his next fight, and he gets destroyed in his next fight. So with these guys that have an amazing year when they're 39 years old, sometimes they can just fall off again, right? Diego Ferreira can be washed. That can happen. But he had such a good performance in his last outing against a really dangerous, well-rounded fighter that I just can't pick against him in this one. Grant Dawson, he's been chinned by Bobby Green, who's not known for his power. Now he's going in there with a guy with an amazing grappling base who's never been dominated in the grappling, not once in his career. Okay, Mateusz Gamrot beat this guy, Diego Ferreira, by a TKO knee in the clinch, right? Not even Gamrot could beat this guy up on the ground. Grant Dawson could take his back. He's really good at that. Grant Dawson can establish some control. Grant Dawson, we could even see some elbows, but I think Diego Ferreira is going to finish him. I really do. I think this is a terrible matchup for Grant Dawson. I think the matchups for Grant Dawson are going to be the strikers or the grapplers like Beneil Dariush type of grapplers that just aren't dangerous on the ground, that don't have a ground and pound game. I'm going to go with Diego Ferreira. Risky pick just because, again, 39 years old, even though he just had the best performance of his entire career where he looked indestructible. Unstoppable on the feet, crazy output, hitting hard, kicks were amazing, grappling was amazing. He could just get washed within a couple of months. That happens. But I'm going to trust in him because of how well-rounded he is. Grant Dawson has a questionable chin. In his last couple of fights since Bobby Green, he's not fought really dangerous fighters, right? They were giving this guy Selecki and other smudge grapplers, but now he's in there with a killer, Diego Ferreira, who seems to have leveled up. I got Diego Ferreira, but this should be a really interesting fight. Grant Dawson has a chance. I'm leaning 60% Diego Ferreira gets it done because he's dangerous on the feet and he's not easy to outgrapple. So let's get on to the next one. Zachary Reese versus Cedric Dumas. Cedric Dumas just beat Denis Tolulin. And I think I even picked Denis Tolulin to win that one. That was when I created the song, I Believe in Tolulin, which was obviously one of the hot songs of the summer. But now we have a different problem for Cedric Dumas. and that's a guy that's not old, that has been finishing people. So I'm going to pick Zachary Reese. Zachary Reese, first UFC fight, got slammed on his head by Cody Brundage, and then after that, people kind of wrote him off. But since then, he's got 2 finishes, one of them being an uppercut KO in the first round. Cedric Dumas still not looking that good, man. Even against Tallulah, he was not looking that great. He was not being that dominant, and he's going to decisions. Zachary Reese has decent grappling. Cedric Dumas, the one way he can win this fight, in my opinion, I think his striking may have improved a tiny bit, like his jab is looking a little bit better, but I'm going to go with Zachary Reese. Cedric Dumas is making it too close with washed-up, older fighters that aren't that good. And I'm going to go with Zachary Reese because he's fast, he has the finishing ability, and, I believe he's got a frame advantage over Cedric Dumas as well. Dumas has the reach advantage, only a slight reach advantage, but I'm going to go with Zachary Reese by a TKO. Jailton Almeida and Sergey Spivak. I'm picking Jailton Almeida. This is one of the easiest picks on the card. I understand that he couldn't finish Derek Lewis, and I get it. He couldn't finish Curtis Blaydes, but he was dominating Curtis Blaydes, man. All right? He was dominating Curtis Blaydes. Blaydes got Jailton Almeida in an unfortunate position, and a couple of shots rocked him, and then he was out of it. But I really think Jailton could potentially win the rematch against Blaydes. He must have taken him down 10 times, and I think Blaydes is a little bit better than Sergey Spivak. I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida to submit Sergey Spivak, right? Spivak can be tricky. He can be tricky. I believe he beat Marcin Tybura, which is an amazing win because Marcin Tybura, we know how good he is. He's very underrated. Actually, one of the best finishers in heavyweight history. People don't give Tybura the credit for that, but Tybura has a nasty ground game, and Sergey Spivak was able to put him away. He was able to finish Derek Lewis. Jailton Almeida wasn't, but Sergey Spivak, still typical heavyweight. Maybe back in the 90s, this guy would be a champion. He would be having a quadrilogy with Fedor Emelianenko. But right now, Jailton Almeida, it's just a lock that this guy gets a takedown first, right? It's just a lock that he's able to keep Sergey Spivak on his back, right? Sergey Spivak is a good grappler, but he's still a heavyweight. And if he gets put on his back, he's probably just going to stay there. So Jailton Almeida should get this one done by a submission. I'm going to pick a rear naked choke. Second round submission for Jailton Almeida. Maybe we'll see some improved striking. Maybe we'll see that. Or maybe we'll see a bit of a ground and pound game from him. We'll see. But I'm picking Jailton. Just obviously a massive athletic advantage. Lighter man skill as well. Former light heavyweight. Former welterweight, by the way. Jailton Almeida used to fight a welterweight. Payton Talbott versus Raoni Barcelos. This is a huge step up in competition for Payton Talbott, a very big step up. And Payton Talbott has a incredibly risky style where eventually he's going to get lit up and he's going to take a lot of damage. The thing is, though, he has the equalizer. He has crazy power. He's got really good creative striking as well, and he's always marching forward, and he trusts in every single punch that he throws. That's really one of his strengths, is that he fully commits to everything that he throws. And he has good combos. He has great timing. But is Raoni Barcelos the guy that's going to be able to light him up? I don't think so. And I think it comes down to this. Barcelos is good. He's always been a bit of a poor man's Aldo, right? Very similar style of moving around, right? He's got good body shots like Aldo, but he's also old and he's a bit jittery. And he got knocked out by Umar Nurmagomedov. Since then, he's not been KO'd, but, right, I believe he lost a close decision to Kyler Phillips, which I think he should have won. He's still good, but I just think Payton Talbott's too dangerous not to get the KO. And I don't think Raoni Barcelos has the power to put Payton Talbott away. Now, to be fair, Payton Talbott hasn't taken a lot of damage or punishment, so we don't really know if his chin is that great. But I think it's just for sure that Payton Talbott's going to do what he normally does, walk forward, trust in his combinations, throw bombs. He's going to land. And I don't think Raoni Barcelos is durable enough. And I don't think he is defensively sound enough to be able to last 3 rounds picking Payton Talbott apart. I think eventually he'll get caught with something. I think the level of striker that beats a Payton Talbott right now, you either got to be like a Song Yudong who can meet fire with fire, or you just have to be like maybe a Sandhagen would probably beat Payton. I don't know, actually. I don't know, actually. Sandhagen might just get lit up by Payton Talbott, man. Bedtime's still saying Sandhagen may have been the second best striker in the division. What? Dude, this... I don't know. Listen, Sandhagen was always a good striker. He was never the second best. All right, I heard Bedtime say that recently. But listen, imagine if Payton Talbott slept Sandhagen. Oh, man. Because Sandhagen is the one that was like, Payton Talbott's got a really good style, man. I just think eventually you're going to walk forward with your hands down like that. You're going to get lit up. I actually think Sandhagen at this point probably would out poke and prod against him, but who, like, the type of strikers that beat Payton Talbott, maybe a Said Nurmagomedov, right? Said, he could strike a range and then he can grapple, right? But I'm trying to think of just strikers. The problem with Barcelos is that he's just a little bit too jittery. He's a little bit too old. He's not as durable as he used to be. You know, you watch Raoni Barcelos and you're just like, fuck, dude, if this guy fights anyone with plot armor, with power, he's just going to get KO'd. The top strikers definitely beat Payton Talbott, but yeah, this is an interesting fight, though, because, again, Gamori, who Payton Talbott just fought, 1,000 leagues below Raoni Barcelos. And then before that, Cameron Simon. Cameron Simon was pretty good, but again, Payton Talbott, just a demolition job against this guy. So I don't think we're going to see anyone beat Payton Talbott until we get a really well-rounded fighter that can mix in the takedowns, that's also really good on the feet, and someone that's close to their prime, but that's the thing. And this is where it gets frustrating. With these fighters, Talbott, Pimblett, they never, ever get someone that's in their prime until they're fighting in a number one contenders fight. Which, listen, it's great that they'll fight someone in a number one contenders fight that's in their prime, but, you know, I would want to see a Paddy Pimblett versus a Benoit St. Denis fight. It's not because Benoit St. Denis is this huge test. Like, I obviously know he's not this future champion that I thought he was, at least not now. People can improve. But you give Paddy Pimblett someone that's on the back end of their career, like a Michael Chandler, who isn't fighting like himself anymore and is a little bit chinny, right? And it's like eventually these guys are going to just fall off anyway. Let's have like the Raumbetsky, Odolbai type of fights. After this, I want to see Payton Talbott fight someone that's actually like good and in their prime, like what's his name? Mario Batista. Make that fight. I don't want to see the fucking Pedro Munoz versus Talbott after this. Come on, man. This is a good fight, though. I'm not complaining about this. This is a good matchup. This is the right matchup. Barcelos is a good test. But after this, let's not do another Barcelos fight. I think what we're going to see here is, I think Payton Talbott knocks him out in the first round. That's my prediction. That is my official prediction. It's going to be a first-round KO from Payton Talbott. Speaking of first-round KOs, I think Johnny Walker's going to get knocked out in this fight as well. Bogdan Guskov, Anthony Smith's tattooless doppelganger. Listen, man, he's probably going to knock out Johnny Walker. He's probably getting this one done. Johnny Walker can finish anyone, man. He can knock out an elephant. We know that. Johnny Walker can leap through the freaking stadium roof with his flying knee. But will he land it is always the question. It always seems to be one of those things where he's always about 5 feet away from landing it, right? Magomed is in front of him. Magomed's in front of him. He throws the flying knee, and Magomed's 10 feet away. I think we're going to see a Bogdan Guskov. His hands are going to be low because he likes to stand with his hands low so that he can sneak in shots that are coming at weird angles. I think we're going to see a Bogdan Guskov sneaky right hand coming from a low angle. And I think he's going to spin Johnny Walker's head back and flatline him. That's what we're going to see first round. Although it could be interesting if Johnny Walker takes him down. Now, this is the thing. We've seen Walker show his grappling. And he has, like, he submitted Ion Kutalaba. He's a good grappler. He's a pretty decent grappler. Bogdan Guskov was submitted and finished by Volkan Ozdemir. So I could maybe see Johnny Walker winning this by a submission, but again, he's not moved to heavyweight yet. So these submissions aren't going to come that easily. Why is he still fighting at light heavyweight? I think it's a big mistake. Everyone was telling this guy he should move to heavyweight. Listen, the weight cut is not going to be good for your chin. You're already one of the biggest guys in the light heavyweight division. You'll be just fine at heavyweight. Look at Kennedy Nzechukwu moved up. Now he's dominating everybody. You could just move up to heavyweight and go Jilt and Almeida mode and just out-grapple everybody until you get to like the top 10, top 5. But instead, he's fighting heavy hitters like Bogdan Guskov, who, you know, people that are just getting into the UFC that haven't been KO'd 5 times. So I think it's a huge mistake that he's taking fights like this still. I think he should have moved up. I'm going to pick Bogdan by a first round KO. On to the next one. Reinier de Ridder, former double champ, versus Kevin Holland. Reinier de Ridder, 1FC double champ. He's getting compared to Dricus du Plessis these days. I believe it's because, of course, it's the awkward game. It's the goofy striking, falling over himself, very sloppy style. And I think it also just has to do with the fact that he's got like a similar build to Dricus. He's like a slightly smaller version of Dricus du Plessis, but very similar frame. You know, he's got like the gangly arms and all that. But he's got none of the power, and he's got none of the speed, and he's got none of the explosiveness, and that's the difference between Dricus du Plessis and Reinier de Ridder. Dricus du Plessis hits hard, he's fast, he's explosive. Reinier de Ridder is slow, he's not a guy that can crack. He has good grappling, he's tricky there, but this is not the next Dricus du Plessis, and I think that, listen, it's easy to say, listen, this guy had a terrible performance against GM3, that means he's going to be a champ. I actually think he had a bad performance against Gerald Meerschaert because that's actually just one of the toughest opponents he's ever fought. And I think that Kevin Holland would beat Gerald Meerschaert. I know Gerald Meerschaert's good. He's got a good ground game. We know that. He's got a great submission game. But he's not that durable, and his boxing is not that good, but he was able to outstrike Reinier de Ridder. Kevin Holland, he's been in there with MVP. He's been in there with JDM. We've seen this guy have amazing performances where he looks fast. The people that make him look silly are the best, most elite strikers on the planet. Or back in the day, he got out-grappled a few times. But I think he's a different grappler. The last time he fought a goofy grappler who's sort of slow, doesn't have a great ability to do anything on the feet, was Michael Chiesa, and he finished him in the first round. I'm going to pick Kevin Holland. Former lighter man skill, right? He's always going middleweight to welterweight, middleweight to welterweight. Now, it's a little bit weird because if you're always switching back and forth like that, you don't really retain the lighter man skill. You actually start to become a middleweight at that point. You're just a middleweight cutting down. So Kevin Holland's got the heavier man skill when he cuts down, but he's fast. He's got a submission game. I think that Kevin Holland has had enough grappling training camps where, you know, he's been in there with Brunson, he's been in there with Vettori. I think this is going to be after the culmination of everything that he's ever done in his entire career. It's going to be for this moment. He's not going to get completely out-grappled. You never know, though, because Gerald Meerschaert's really good on the ground, and maybe a regular striker just gets steamrolled by Reinier de Ridder, but I don't think that's the case, actually. I think Kevin Holland's going to crack this guy on the feet, and I think he's going to finish him. And I also think he's going to go in there with a chip on his shoulder because he knows the UFC is using this as like the Reinier de Ridder coming out party. This is his introduction to the fans. He fought in the Apex. Now he's fighting in front of a crowd. They're trying to give him a big name like Kevin Holland so that he can get some recognition. But remember, Kevin Holland's last fight was against Roman Dolidze. And normally we see great performance, disappointing performance. Great performance, disappointing performance from Kevin Holland. That time it was a fluke. It was a classic Roman Dolidze, scramble and you get injured, right? Now, maybe that's because Roman Dolidze has like something special that he does in the grappling, but I believe that was a bit of a fluky injury situation where I think he may have hurt his rib in a scramble. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder because that's the last fight that he's had. He didn't get to show anything. And before that, he beat the shit out of Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. He hurt him badly, dropped him. And, wait a second. It was Mikhail that dropped Kevin Holland. It was actually Oleksiejczuk that dropped Holland, but then Holland armbarred him. But then again, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk has light heavyweight man skill. So Kevin Holland was actually fighting a guy that actually fights a light heavyweight quite often. So he had the skill advantage. I'm going to go with Holland. I think that this could easily be a Reinier de Ridder submission or grappling domination like a 30-27, but I'm going to go with Kevin Holland. I think he's going to be fast. I think he's going to be hungrier in this fight. And I think that, he's going to be able to beat the former 1FC double champ, Reinier de Ridder. So I'll go with Kevin Holland by a TKO as we get on to Jiri Prochazka and Jamahal Hill. This is interesting. This is a really interesting one. Long time in the making. Not as hype as it would have been before these guys both got KO'd. Jiri multiple times, but Jamahal Hill got the worst KO because that was like the highlight of the last year. And Jamahal Hill has been saying that, listen, I didn't get dominated by Alex Pereira. I got caught. Jiri got dog-walked, dominated, and picked apart. Which is kind of true. Jiri Prochazka had nothing for Pereira in his last performance. But I think, you know what? I'm picking Jiri, and I'll tell you why. Now, again, when it comes to Jiri Prochazka, it's never going to be one of these, man, I just think Yuri's leg kick game is just, no, it's none of that. It's about the way the wind is going to go that night. It's going to be the conditions in the arena. It's going to have to do with the vibe. I think that Jamahal Hill is going to go in there because he's been talking a lot this past year. He's still salty from the KO loss against Alex Pereira. And he's going in there with a guy that got dog-walked by Pereira. He's going in there with a guy that he's always said has terrible defense. Yuri's too hittable. And I know that Yuri's taken a lot of damage. He's taken more damage than Jamahal Hill. But I watched Jamahal Hill's first round with Glover Teixeira back. And this guy's hands are down all the time. We talk about Jiri Prochazka not having the best defense. Jiri Prochazka will chin feint and he'll have his chin out there on a silver platter. Jamahal Hill, he'll pop the jab in his right hand. Or I believe it's his left hand because he's southpaw. His left hand is down by his waist all the time. All the time. And the reason why Jiri didn't do so well against Alex Pereira, same thing with Jamahal, but it's because Alex Pereira's defense has leveled up tenfold. The way that Khalil Roundtree was able to land on him is because Khalil Roundtree's just insanely fast. Okay? He's so fast. Jiri is not as fast as that. Jamahal Hill's not as fast as that. But when you have someone with regular light heavyweight speed, Alex Pereira just can make them look silly because of how easily he can deflect shots with his hands, with his guard. His defense has been getting a lot better over the years, and we know his leg kick defense is really good too, but both guys don't have great defense, but the reason why I'm picking Jiri Prochazka is, number one, Jamahal Hill's defense just way worse. I'm sorry, bro. This guy is so open to getting hit. Jiri is too. Jiri gets lit up, but it's more on his terms. That's the thing, though. Jiri gets hit because it's on his terms. Jamahal Hill gets hit because he's open. Jiri will want to get hit. He kind of tries to test your soul in there. He wants to take your best shots so he can still stand right in front of you and try to sort of demoralize you with the pressure because he doesn't go anywhere and he's got a granite chin. I still stand by this. I think that Jiri Prochazka has one of the best chins at light heavyweight. I don't think any of these other guys are going to put him away as easily as Alex Pereira. And Jamahal Hill, tough as well, good chin. These guys aren't going to put him away as easily. But Jiri's got that special looping right hand. You know, the one that I'm talking about, where it comes at a weird angle. It's got this weird loop to it, but he can really just sort of leap his entire body into this right hand that he throws. That's how he was able to knock out Ozdemir. That's how he was able to rock Alexander Rakic. And ultimately, it's going to come down to the mindset. I think Jamahal Hill thinks he's going to go out there and have an easy night at the office against Jiri Prochazka because he's seeing Jiri get lit up by Pereira. He didn't get lit up, but he got caught with one shot. Jamahal Hill's, a lot of people think Jamahal Hill's, he's going to be so focused and all that. And of course, he's definitely hungry to get back in the win column, of course. But I think he's going to kind of brush off Jiri. I think he's going to kind of brush him off a bit in this one. And I think he's going to go in there thinking this is about to be easy. And I think Jiri Prochazka, we saw this guy, he had to have 5 people hold him up after he got KO'd. That was a bad look. That's the look of someone that's about to lose their chin. I don't think he's about to lose his chin, man. I think Yuri's going to go in there rejuvenated. All right? I think this is going to be another case of nobody beats Jiri unless you have as much plot armor and aura and built differentness as Alex Pereira. All right? I think the Jiri Prochazka and this, holy martial arts ghost that just happens to be with him all the time unless Pereira's fighting him because Pereira has his own plot armor. I think we're just going to see him get it done, man. I just trust it. You can't pick this fight based on the X's and O's. All right? I think back in the day, there was this idea that Jamahal Hill was the much more technical, clean, surgical fighter. And he is more orthodox than Jiri Prochazka. Jiri's still a little bit more goofy and wild. But as far as the defense goes, Jamahal Hill's hands are down all day. Like, I'm trying to think of the last few opponents that Jiri's fought. Rakic, high guard, boxing guard. Alex Pereira, deflecting shots, right? Who's the last guy that Jiri's fought that doesn't have great defense? Like, Jamahal Hill's going to be the worst defensive fighter that Jiri's fought in a long time, bro. Probably the worst one he's fought in the UFC. I think if you put someone in, Dominic Reyes doesn't have great defense, by the way. When Jiri fights someone that doesn't have really good defense, he is an offensive juggernaut. And he hits hard, man. Jamahal Hill's got pop, but he does not have the same one-hitter quitter power that Jiri does. You look at Jiri's highlights, you look at his highlight tape, everybody's going to sleep. Everybody with one shot. Jiri has this nasty power. He's got Jamahal Hill, right? There's different kinds of power. There's light heavyweight power, and then there's like weird power where Pereira has it, Jiri to a certain degree has it, where they hit you with like a regular shot, but like the reaction of the opponents is just nuts. And we didn't see that in the Rakic fight, fair enough, but we've seen it, man. We've seen it in the fucking Ozdemir fight. You got to go back 10 years. Jamahal Hill's probably had more. Has he had more TKOs? I think they both had like the same amount of TKOs in the UFC. It really just boils down to, I think Jamahal Hill's going to sort of underestimate Jiri because of how easily Jiri gets hit, right? He always just gets lit up early on. I think Jamahal Hill's going to win the first few exchanges, but I just don't see him putting Jiri away. I don't think Jiri's chin is going to be done completely. He's also talked about moving to middleweight. And of course, Jiri is the kind of guy to like diet through he's kind of got like a Tony Ferguson mentality where Jiri couldn't make middleweight because he's not big for light heavyweight. He's massive for light heavyweight. The only reason he could make middleweight is because he basically walks around in diet mode year round. Like Jiri Prochazka eats like one sardine a day. You know what I mean? Jiri eats one sardine, a couple nibbles of chicken, and maybe a bowl of oats before he trains and some green tea. That's Jiri's diet. So he could make middleweight because he's like underfeeding himself, right? But my point is Jiri doesn't have like a crazy weight cut. I don't think Jamahal Hill does either. I don't know. But, again, it really just boils down to, do you think, who do you think who you think's going to win this mentally? Right? Jamahal Hill, he's got a very good mentality for toughness because he's got that stubborn mentality as well, right? Because he's tough. He's proved it. He was able to take some bombs off of Santos. But I don't know. There's just something about the way that Jamahal Hill has been viewing Jiri or talking about Jiri. And even if it's just a little bit of a smidge of the mindset, like 99% of Hill's mindset could be like, I'm taking Jiri serious. He's dangerous, right? But 1%, even if 1% is off, that's enough for Jiri to win. And I think there could be a little bit of that. Man, Jiri Prochazka, this guy got dog walked by Pereira. His defense sucks, right? This guy's one of the most hittable fighters. I'm going to make him look like a fool. I'm going to style on him, right? Because Hill had an easy fight with Glover. Jiri had a war with Glover. But I think a lot of that could have been because Glover was just older, coming off of a brutal war. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back, that fight with Jiri. I don't think Glover was the same after that. But yeah, I think Jiri's going to get this one. Jiri has the reach advantage, 80-inch reach. Jamahal Hill's got a 79-inch reach. Jiri's 6'3", Jamahal Hill 6'4". They're basically the same height. Man, I could see Jamahal Hill flatlining Jiri early, though. If Jiri's chin is gone, he's going to lose. Like, it kind of all depends on, does Jiri still have his chin or not? Because if he does, of course, Hill could still put him away. But, like, if he still has his chin, the only person that I can trust to put him away is Pereira. And there's a chance he doesn't have the same chin anymore, but I don't know. I just think he's still, only 31? He's in his prime. I don't think it's going to be that simple where he got brutally KO'd by Pereira. It's over. I think we're going to see Jiri Prochazka sneak in a right hand after getting picked apart for the first half of the first round. I think we're going to see Jiri stay in there. He's going to take damage. He's going to get the finish. It's going to be similar to the Rakic fight. It's going to be a little bit more competitive. The Rakic fight was dominant for Rakic for the first round. It was all Rakic. But again, you watch Jamahal Hill fighting Glover, for example. His hands are just down the entire time. And I really do think the people that can give Jiri an issue are defensively sound fighters. Even people with regular defense like Reyes, Reyes got lit up. Reyes got completely lit up. And I don't think Jiri Prochazka respects anyone else's power other than Ferreira. He had no respect for Rakic at all. Rakic doesn't hit that hard, but yeah, I'm going to go with Jiri just based on vibes, essentially. That's the way you got to pick it. If you're picking Jamahal Hill, then it's going to be because Jiri got his KO was worse, his KO loss was worse, and he's taken too much damage and he's too hittable. But it's like, bro, I really think the only reason why people say that is because of how easy the Glover fight was for Hill. Because Hill didn't take a lot of damage against Glover, people assume his defense is 10 times that of Jiri Prochazka, but I think a lot of that was just Glover was just out of it. And ultimately, as I said, I just think that Jamahal Hill is going to go in there thinking that this fight's going to be a little bit easier than it actually will be. Jiri's going to make it a lot more competitive than Hill anticipates. Jiri's going to be in there, and I think he's got the power advantage, and I think he's going to win this one. Let's get on to the next one. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Kind of crazy, by the way, but both of these guys are the same age. Beneil Dariush, 35. Renato Moicano, 35. Both in completely different places in their career. Renato Moicano is the best he's ever been. Beneil Dariush, 2 KO losses in a row. Listen, if this fight were to have happened a year ago, I would have picked Beneil Dariush. But after seeing what Renato Moicano was able to do on the ground to Benoit Saint-Denis, who is a really solid grappler, I know that Beneil Dariush's jiu-jitsu is probably a little bit better. It's more proven. But I just don't see Renato Moicano being a rollover for anyone on the ground. I think similar to the Grant Dawson fight, I think that it's going to be a nightmare for Beneil Dariush to try to outgrapple Renato. It's going to be a nightmare. Renato Moicano is one of the best grapplers in this UFC division anyway, the lightweight division. And Beneil Dariush's been chinned twice in a row. I think Renato's going to win this by decision. Maybe a finish. I definitely don't see Beneil Dariush getting a KO. Renato Moicano is not known for having a lot of power. He's not known for having the best combinations on the feet, but he's got so much momentum finishing Jalen Turner, getting the win over Benoit Saint-Denis. Second round, I think he was kind of taking that round off a little bit just to pepper at the eye of Benoit Saint-Denis, which was swollen shut. I think he was gunning for the doctor's stoppage, but Renato's still got his durability. Beneil Dariush is getting flatline left and right. Moicano, in my opinion, has got the better long, rangy style on the feet. Although Beneil Dariush's kicks can be a little bit disruptive. He's got the mule kick. Let's not forget that. He's got the big, gnarly overhand. Remember, we were saying he was Wildman Makhachev, but I just think that without the toughness, without the chin, because his defense is not that great, I just don't see him being nearly as effective. And because I don't see his striking being nearly as effective as it used to be, his striking being dangerous, that is what made him seem like a real threat in that top 10. But now, I just view him as someone with no chin. And I think he's going to be more of like a Grant Dawson, where he's got good grappling, but it's not that dangerous. He's not got the best submission game. He's not got great ground and pound. He's in there with Renato Moicano, who seems to be getting better and better on the ground. And his striking is just, in my opinion, he's more there on the feet. He's more present on the feet these days. So Renato Moicano, I think he's going to get that one done by a decision. I wish that they were to have given him someone that was in their prime, but let's get on to the next one. Merab Dvalishvili. They should have done Moicano versus Pimblett, but Merab and Umar. So Umar's got this arm injury, right? A lot of us are aware of that. Apparently Umar Nurmagomedov has some sort of an arm injury, but I don't think Umar Nurmagomedov would be taking this fight if his arm was truly fucked up. All right, I've been seeing this guy training. I've been seeing him hitting pads. He looks fine. Merab is also probably banged up. So I think we're going to see a relatively healthy Umar Nurmagomedov in there. And he also knows he's eventually going to get that title shot anyway. So I don't think he would just leap at the bits for it. I'm picking Umar, though. I've said this. I think Umar is a terrible matchup for Merab. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to dominate the fight. Although I do believe he's going to win 49-46 or 50-45. But what it does mean is that Merab Dvalishvili is up against someone that you couldn't create a better opponent to beat Merab. He's big for the division. Merab Dvalishvili, one of his best strengths is his physicality. He's now fighting one of the biggest bantamweights. Umar Not only is he pretty long for the division, he's taller. On the taller side, he's not that tall. He's not like a Sandhagen, but he's got a long reach. He's sort of tall for the division, and he fights a very long, rangy style. That's really important. Not only is he big, like in general, he's just got a lot of mass for the division, but he fights like a super long, rangy fighter. Insanely fast, too. He's not like one of these, poking and prodding long, rangy guys. He's like chucking out 3-4 piece combos faster than you can count one. Right? This guy's insanely fast. And Umar Nurmagomedov. I know he's a Nurmagomedov, and everyone knows he's got a great grappling because of the last name. But in general, bro, this guy's been training with that team for his entire fucking life. Merab Dvalishvili's way to win fights is just quite often taking people up against the fence and kneeing them to the thigh, dragging them to the canvas. I just don't see that. I don't see that happening. Umar Nurmagomedov is fast twitch. Merab Dvalishvili gets this guy up against the fence. Umar's going to spin out of it instantly. All right? Right? He gets taken down for a second. He's getting right back up to his feet. And when have we ever seen someone from that team just gas out really quickly? If Merab had went out there and totally trashed O'Malley for 5 rounds, in the 5th round he was throwing O'Malley out of the octagon and just like pile driving him and stuff like that, then maybe I would consider Merab. But O'Malley won the 5th round. O'Malley won a couple of the later rounds against Merab, and that was kind of like a big eye-opener to me that if you're rangy, okay, if you're long and you have a rangy style, you could pick this guy apart and get some respect on the feet. Now, of course, I think O'Malley is obviously going to have more respect from Merab just because Sean O'Malley has, obviously crazy KO power, and he's got the highlight reel, and everyone knows you don't want to get slept by him. Merab's friend Aljo got face planted by a step back right hand, so obviously he was very careful because he knows that's the way O'Malley is going to win. But still, I think Merab is not going to have the same respect for Umar Nurmagomedov, but I think it's going to come back to bite him because he's going to be moving forward with no respect, and he's going to be getting lit up with these 4-piece combinations at the speed of light that do have some sting on them because Umar is just a big guy for the division. So obviously he's got some thud behind his punches. He's like Paulo Costa, right? Costa's big for the division, but he doesn't necessarily have that best technique. He doesn't have the best combos. Imagine if Costa had like really amazing technique and good combinations. He would probably be cracking people harder, but he's just kind of throwing big arm punches. Umar Nurmagomedov is throwing 4 or 5-piece combinations with good technique, insane speed. He's got thud behind his punches. He's going to be able to get out of the bad positions whenever Merab takes him up against the fence. And I also think there's a chance that Umar could take Merab's back here and there. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Merab is too much of a beast to just get his back taken. But essentially, I just think that Umar is going to dance around him for 5 rounds on the feet. I really do. Unless Umar is truly fucked up with his injury, I don't think we're going to see a Merab 3, 4, or 5, like complete domination where... we've seen Henry Cejudo, for example, test Merab in the 1st round, hurt him, and then the 2nd and 3rd round were all Merab. I think that Umar's shown a really good ability to have, good composed style of fighting. He showed that against Sandhagen. The 5th round, he hadn't missed a beat. He was as good in the 5th as he was in the 1st. Actually, even better. 1st round against Sandhagen was his worst round, and I think that was just because he was having like a bit of a warm-up round. Little bit of a feel-out process, and then he realized he's so much faster than Sandhagen. I think he's going to realize that he's so much faster than Merab, and he's going to just start getting confidence off of that. And I think Merab going into this fight rattled a little bit. He feels disrespected. That could work in his favor, right? We've seen a pissed-off Merab have his best performance against Jan, but, you don't want to be too frustrated in the cage, especially when someone's lighting you up and they're faster than you. It's just going to spiral out of control. It's going to be like a Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar type of situation. You know how it is, man. When you get frustrated and you're fighting someone or sparring against someone that's faster than you and they're just lighting you up, it doesn't serve you well to just get frustrated and try to fucking get it back. It's going to get even worse. I think that this is the last guy that Merab can just manhandle on the ground. I don't think Nurmagomedov is going to get manhandled on the ground. And it's going to come down to the striking. Merab is always feinting. He's throwing cardio kickboxing combinations. But I think that this isn't a guy that depends on close quarters striking. I think for people that are really good with their inside striking like Jan, as soon as he can open up and he's in a position to do really well, that's where Merab does his best work, where he's like on a single leg. But for Umar, he does his best work at a long range. So when Merab is throwing those cardio kickboxing combos, where Jan would be shelling up, waiting for the perfect moment, that's where Umar Nurmagomedov is beating him to the punch. You know? So I got Umar, 50-45. It sounds crazy. It sounds so crazy to just say 50-45 against Merab. You know, but like, I really do think Nurmagomedov's performance against Sandhagen was real good. I know it's Sandhagen, but still. You know, because I've been saying Merab is like the bantamweight GOAT. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. He is. But your legacy and your resume doesn't necessarily mean you're just going to beat everyone, right? Volkanovski's the featherweight GOAT. It doesn't mean he beats Topuria, though, right? So, you know, just because I think you have the best resume in your division's history doesn't mean you're going to win this. Oh, but, you know, I guess I got to go with Merab 40-47. No, I think Umar's going to 50-45 him. It just sounds crazy to say that because, like, who's going to 50-45 Merab? You have to be a completely different beast. But that's the thing. Stylistically, this is just a stylistic matchup. I think Umar Nurmagomedov is going to be a really difficult champion to beat. I think we may be looking at the best bantamweight right here. I mean, of course, it's for the title, right? But, you know, some people are not so happy that he's fighting for the title. He went from fighting guys that aren't that good to one good fighter, and now he's fighting for a title. But I really do think he has the skill set that represents the best bantamweight because of how well-rounded he is. So, yeah, Umar gets it done as we get on to the main event. Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. I'm picking Arman. No, I'm joking. I'm picking Islam to win by a 48-47 split decision. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I really do. We talked about the Poirier fight. I made a whole video on the Poirier fight where essentially what I said is that even though Makhachev didn't necessarily wow us in the Poirier fight, because a lot of us thought he was going to go out there and finish Dustin easily, we didn't think he was going to have an issue with Poirier at all. All right? Most people thought that Makhachev was going to make it look easy. And although there were moments where he looked incredible on the feet, oh my goodness, he's outstriking Poirier and he still got the finish. He's outboxing DP. There was a lot of adversity in that fight. However, I said that I think that's actually going to work to his favor because although Arman Tsarukyan had a really good performance against Charles Oliveira, he was in there with someone that didn't give him any problems. And although at first glance, that's a really good thing, Arman dominated Oliveira on the feet. Obviously, the ground game was competitive, but Arman still won the grappling exchanges, elbowed the shit out of Charles on the ground, controlled him a lot in the second round. And listen, I think people overestimate how well Oliveira did in the third because of that submission attempt. Listen, make no mistakes, Arman won every single moment on the feet, but I really do think Oliveira just was missing out there. I don't know what he was doing on the feet in that fight. He was doing nothing. He was so tentative. And I think it's the brother-brother style that gets to him. We saw that in the Makhachev fight. But even against Makhachev, Oliveira was throwing, trying to knock him out at times. Against Arman, Oliveira didn't even throw a strike. You know, I think he averaged like half a strike per minute. Maybe he would throw a kick, a body kick. That was it. But Arman was basically piecing up a guy that wasn't fighting him on the feet. Islam Makhachev was out there having a grit down with Dustin Poirier, one of the best boxers in lightweight history. And yeah, Poirier is not known for being that dangerous when it comes to fighting grapplers, but if you're looking at what's likely going to happen in this fight, I doubt that Arman is going to take Islam Makhachev down and out-grapple him easily, right? It's going to be a nightmare for him to do that. Same thing for Makhachev. It's going to be a nightmare for him to try to establish a dominant position over Arman. I think it's most likely that what we're going to see is a stand-up battle. And I think the fact that Makhachev has been in deep waters and he's had his grit down battles with DP and Volkanovski, I think that that's going to give him the edge in this fight against a guy that, although Arman is very good, and I think he's going to give Islam problems, I think he's going to be super competitive on the feet because he's not going to have any respect for Makhachev. That's a big thing, the mentality of Arman. No respect. How well he did in the first fight. He did amazing in the first fight. Took it on 2 weeks' notice. Makhachev was much more developed in his game. Now, obviously, both of them have improved. But he's going to know, dude, if I can test Makhachev and take him down on 2 weeks' notice and have a close fight, imagine what I can do now, right? And the brother-brother mentality, just no respect for Makhachev's game. It's going to be massive for him. But ultimately, Makhachev has been to war, man. Makhachev knows what it's like to dig deep. Makhachev's combinations are just that much crisper. Listen, I know Arman's striking is good, but it's really his kicks that are great. His boxing is just decent. He's got a jab, a pepper jab, and that's basically it. Fair enough, the big right hand that knocked out Beneil Dariush, but come on, we're never gonna see that again. You never know, though. Arman could improve a lot. No one expected Makhachev to outstrike Charles. Everyone was saying Oliveira was going to dominate him on the feet, and Makhachev turned out to dominate Charles on the feet instead. So it's possible that Arman can level up again. But I think based on what we've seen, even though Arman may be improving at a slightly faster rate, that's the thing. I feel like Makhachev's kind of maintaining at this point. I think he's peaked out as far as skills go, and he's sort of just refining. Arman, I believe, he's 28? He's still probably getting a lot better from fight to fight. I think the experience of Makhachev being in those gritty battles on the feet, deep waters, I think his clinch striking, his knees in the clinch against a shorter opponent like Arman Tsarukyan. Listen, he was cracking Poirier with good knees in the clinch. Volkanovski was easier to hit with those knees in the clinch, right? And that was bulked up Volk. Think about it. That was, when you move up a division, your chin gets better because you're no longer cutting weight. Arman at 155 is lean and mean. Volkanovski, he was lean. He wasn't lean and mean. He's able to take those knees a little bit better. Arman is around the same height as a Volk. Makhachev's going to be right there kneeing him in the face. Step in knees, right? And I think, again, the boxing is just a little bit crisper. I think Makhachev just cracks a little bit harder. And his defense, we didn't really see the defense have to show itself against Oliveira because Oliveira wasn't throwing any punches against this guy. Maybe Arman's pressure game is just on another level, and that's why, but I really, if Arman had fought Oliveira and Oliveira had just thrown 5-6 more punches per round, I would think a little bit differently, but Oliveira really wasn't throwing any punches against this dude. He was kind of just frozen on the feet, worrying about the threat of the takedown. Makhachev is known for having some of the best defense in the game. So I think Makhachev has the advantage on the feet. I think most of this fight is going to take place on the feet, and I think that Makhachev's just going to get the better of him. I think he's just going to edge out the rounds based on just being a little bit slicker on the feet with better combinations, a deeper tool back. He's going to be able to land those knees. He's got really good body kicks, and that's excellent against shorter opponents. Now, Arman's got amazing kicks too, but it's going to be harder for him to land those kicks against a much taller opponent. So I'm going to pick Makhachev. However, I will say this. I think it's going to be really close. I think that Arman is going to take at least a round or two. At least a round. And I think he's going to surprise us a lot early on. I think he's going to come out the gates looking really excellent. I think he's going to back Makhachev up. I think he's going to land a couple of big shots. I think everyone's going to leave the first round thinking, whoa, this is an Arman fight, right? But I think that as the fight goes on, Makhachev is going to get settled into it. I think we're going to see the championship experience, the later round striking experience. I think his striking tool bag is deeper. So I think he will win. As the fight goes on, he'll do better and better, whereas Arman might start to fade a little bit. But the grappling is really interesting too, because I think that Arman Tsarukyan is more dangerous in this fight when it comes to the ground game. Fair enough. If Makhachev hurts Arman, of course you could submit him. But man, look at that submission defense that we saw against Oliveira, right? He got a lot closer to getting submitted by Oliveira than Makhachev did. So it's very possible that we could see Makhachev snatch up a submission. But what I mean is if Makhachev gets dominant position without rocking Arman, I think it's much less likely that he gets a finish because Arman is just so good on the ground. He's so good at scrambling. If Arman Tsarukyan takes down Makhachev, the last time we saw Makhachev put on his back, it was against Volk. And we know what happened there. Volkanovski, hover maxing, amazing ground and pound. Arman Tsarukyan probably has the best ground and pound at lightweight. I think if Arman takes down Makhachev and gets into mount, right? He was in mount against Oliveira, by the way, but Oliveira is just really good with his jiu-jitsu. He's good off of his back. Makhachev's not great off of his back, I don't think. And I think Arman has a chance to land some nasty elbows and cut Makhachev open. So there is a chance that we could see a takedown from Arman where if this guy establishes dominant position, I think against Makhachev it might be easier for him to land the ground and pound shots than it was against Oliveira. And even against Oliveira, he still fucking did it. He lit Oliveira up. Not many people are good enough to be able to land strikes on the ground with Oliveira, because as soon as you posture up to land something, Oliveira's already defended and he's scrambled out of it, and now he's in a better position. But Makhachev doesn't have the same guard game, probably. So it's going to be interesting. I think Makhachev has a better chance at the submission. It's easy to say that, fair enough, because Arman doesn't have a single submission in his UFC career, but he's very dangerous with the ground and pound. So I'm going to predict Arman wins the first round. I think Arman is going to win maybe like the fourth. And I think Makhachev is going to take like the second, the third, and the fifth. Okay? So I'm going to predict a 48-47, maybe a split decision. Maybe someone gives it to Arman, but I think the difference is going to be on the feet. There's a chance we see no grappling. I would hate that, though, because I really do think Arman should go out here and test Makhachev in the grappling, because I think he might be able to get the takedown, but I think Makhachev is a lot more prepared for it. I believe Makhachev didn't really know too much about Tsarukyan back in the day. This just sounds like a classic, Dagestani fan excuse. Well, Makhachev wasn't given his 2 months of rehydration, right? I mean, to be fair, I am a fan of Makhachev. I want Makhachev to win this fight, by the way, because I want him to break the record for title defenses. So I am kind of pulling for Makhachev a little bit, just because, I just think it would suck to have another lightweight champion just be tied. We're going to have 4 lightweight champions be tied. I want to see someone achieve GOAT status, all right? I want to see some new GOATs, but Arman could definitely win this. But the thing that I was getting at was that Makhachev seemed to be unaware of who Arman was, right? And I think Arman definitely caught him by surprise. Now Makhachev is champion. He knows all about Tsarukyan's game. I think listen, this is a rematch. Makhachev does pretty well in rematches, right? We saw how he did against Volk. I don't know. I mean, maybe that has nothing to do with it. I'm sure Arman knows a lot about Makhachev now too. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that Makhachev is just going to have a bit of an advantage now, because we've said that shorter opponents can do well against him, and I still think that might be the case in the grappling. But as far as the striking goes, I actually think it's usually an advantage for Makhachev. I still think Topuria beats him, but that's because Topuria's boxing is just on another level. And he's got ridiculous power. But Tsarukyan doesn't have the same power. I think he's going to be open to the head kicks, to the body kicks. We've seen Tsarukyan have some moments where his defense gets exposed a little bit. For example, against, forget his name. The Brazilian guy, forget his name. Someone that stung him 2 fights back. Silva. I believe it was Silva. Stung him, rocked him. Tsarukyan won the end of the round nonetheless. Had a great performance outside of that, but yeah, I think that Makhachev might catch him. He's very calculated on the feet. So we could see a TKO. Don't be surprised if we see a TKO in this one. All right? But I am going to pick Makhachev 48-47. I think that there's going to be a lot of talk after this fight about how Makhachev's overrated. Khabib was 1,000 times more dominant. But let's keep in mind the opponents that these guys are fighting. Because I just know that if Makhachev wins a 48-47 split decision, people are going to be like, he's just not dominant. But he's not fighting a McGregor. He's not fighting a Justin Gaethje. Whatever you want to say about Poirier and his defensive grappling is better than Gaethje and McGregor. Okay? Justin Gaethje's defensive grappling, non-existence. Makhachev, all right, who's he? He's fighting Oliveira. Arman Tsarukyan. All right, these are fighters that are as well-rounded as you could possibly get. Volkanovski. And then there's Poirier in the mix, fair enough, but still. I think that people need to recognize that this guy has the hardest title defenses in the UFC right now. Right? I mean, Topuria, I would say, is up there with really difficult title defenses. Volk, but that wasn't a defense, I guess. Max, but I mean, Makhachev, Volkanovski, pound for pound #1 in the first fight, right? Dustin Poirier, brother. right? Just engage you, brother. But you get my point, man. Now he's fighting Arman. That's another tough one. If he beats Arman Tsarukyan a second time, this is the last thing I'll say. If he beats Arman in his prime, as well-rounded as Tsarukyan is, because I believe Tsarukyan will be a future champion if he doesn't win this fight. I mean, look at what he did to Alvarez, by the way. Tsarukyan, that is. I think that we're going to have to put Makhachev in the top 3. I already have him in the top 5, but, you know, fuck that. If he beats Arman Tsarukyan, he's the second greatest fighter ever. And that's a hardcore fan's take. He's the second greatest fighter of all time. Like, he's at least number 3 at this point. What people were going to say, oh, DJ and GSP, like, at a certain point, you have to remember GSP fought for the belt in his 5th UFC fight. Makhachev had 11 fights before he ever fought for the belt. Or was it 10? I believe it was a 10-fight win streak. He had 10 fights before he ever fought for the belt. And some of these fights have been aging well as well. Like Dan Hooker fought Dan Hooker. That's been aging well. Dan Hooker's now on a 3-fight win streak. And back in the day, Hooker was a beast too. Of course, we know he fought the king, Thiago Moises, and the other one, Bobby Green, right? Fought the 2 kings, Thiago Moises and Bobby Green. Those are actually decent wins. I mean, they're okay. But the Hooker win, the Arman 1 win, the Davy Ramos win, these are pretty solid. These are pretty good, right? What else does he have? He's got a bunch of other ones too, okay? He's got a bunch of other ones. And Volk twice. Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Arman Tsarukyan, man. This guy's easily top 3. And people are going to be saying, oh, you can only name 7 names. But it's like, good luck naming fucking 7 names on anyone else's resume. All right? 7 names is a big deal. You know, if you're going to bring up any of these other GOATs, they've got like 4 names and 16 other regular-ass wins. Makhachev's got the 16 regular wins with fucking 7. And, wait. Would this be... If he wins this fight, he's tying Anderson Silva, dude. That's insane. So not only would he break the record for title defenses in the most difficult division to defend it in, which now also could be bantamweight, but my point is that would be the record. He would tie Anderson Silva in the modern era, and his title defenses would be against some of the most well-rounded fighters ever. Oliveira, prime Tsarukyan, Volkanovski, an improved Dustin Poirier, a crafty version. Like, these are amazing. I know this is how good this guy is. Listen, I don't mean to glaze, but like, people will say Poirier, they'll just scoff at that. That's Dustin Poirier is one of the greatest lightweights ever. He's a top 5 lightweight of all time. I think his resume is better than Oliveira's. People will like just scoff at the Dustin win because he's the striker, right? But like, you look at the other lightweight champions, Habib only fought the strikers and RDA, but like, that was the only guy. It's like, you know, we're really giving this dude the toughest, fucking most well-rounded fighters of all time. And the Poirier, one of the GOAT strikers, is the scoff at when, Poirier, right? But Poirier is still an amazing win. Like, that's a great win. So, yeah. If Makhachev gets it done, that'll be crazy. If Arman gets it done, his resume would be pretty great as well. He'd be beating the lightweight GOAT. He would be avenging the loss, which is good too. But he would also have the Alvarez win. He would have the Beneil Dariush win. He would have the Oliveira win. I mean, his resume would be amazing. So Arman would be off to a phenomenal start. So, yeah, looking forward to this fight. This is as high level as it gets. Cannot wait. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Until next time.